Half-Life 3 confirmed. No, really guys, wait, don't turn off the video. It's not clickbait or a meme. Literally, the time has finally come, 15 years after Half-Life 2, and we get our first trailer of the sequel called Half-Life Alyx, which is scheduled to launch in March of 2020. Not that far away. And well, technically this is a prequel to the events of Half-Life 2. Now, I don't want to say that I called it, but I freaking called it, man. Valve is launching Half-Life 3 as a VR exclusive title. This doesn't mean that you have to own a Vive though. The Oculus Rift can also play Steam VR titles and any other headset that supports Windows Mixed Reality. Will this draw a lot more adopters of VR? Maybe. Will it upset the hardcore fan base that wants to play it on PC and console without VR? Absolutely. The memes are in, the disappointment is mounting, the fan base is prepping for a full meltdown. Well, maybe. It has been 15 friggin' years since Half-Life 2, so, I mean, most people who played the originals are different people now. Some probably don't even play games anymore. Or maybe they just died from old age. Okay, perhaps that's being a little bit dramatic. I played the heck out of the first two games, and any mention of the sequels definitely perks my ears up. But like many others, my gut reaction to hearing that this is a VR exclusive does make me go, aw, that sucks. Hearing that there was a new Half-Life game being introduced, my hype levels went to 11 out of 10. Hearing that it's a VR exclusive, and it went straight to a solid 6 out of 10. I've played quite a few VR games, and some of them are actually really good, but I have yet to find a VR experience that has me wanting to play it on the same level or with the same dedication that I get with a normal PC game. And there's a lot of factors behind that, dissecting that rationale, but ultimately it just feels like VR is either still a bit far off from where it needs to be, and also that it's still a little bit gimmicky and a bit clunky in terms of operation. Maybe Half-Life Alyx will change that, but really only time will tell. Now, the gameplay trailer released today does look very good. It's very Half-Life-y. City 17 is looking cooler than ever and very Combine-y. There's head crabs, there's cool police soldiers with crappy garbled microphones, tripods, physics puzzles, and even characters from Half-Life 2. In fact, Alyx is Alyx Vance from the second game. You see her father in the trailer, so it's very much getting right into the meat of the story. And if you've ever played a Half-Life game, you know that things like time might be a bit more relative. So despite this being a prequel perhaps, it does serve as a sequel as well. At least I'm imagining it will. As in, perhaps the story of Half-Life is a little bit less dependent on linear storytelling. Now, along with the trailer, Valve has also launched a website with more information and even a 22-minute long interview with the developers who talk more about the game and the design decisions. The game has also become available to pre-order with a 10% discount for early adopters. However, people that own either the full Valve Index headset or just the Index controllers also get the game for free. For everyone else, it's going to be a full-priced $60 game, but they also said that it's a full game and not just a bite-sized VR experience. Half-Life Alyx is also launching with the Source Engine 2 tools for developers to make their own VR content for the game. Obviously, this is very significant, as the original Half-Life game and the later Source Engine game were and still are used heavily in the modding and indie development community. Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, Portal, and many other titles were all conceived on the modding level using Valve's tools. I've seen many indie VR developers using things like the Unity engine to get their games up and running, but having more accessible Source Engine 2 tools could be a real game changer for the indie devs who will likely be the more important factor when it comes to actually creating VR content that will drive the platform forward. Now, when the developers were designing this game, they actually created a 15-minute long Half-Life VR demo for internal testing. And although this demo was supposed to only last for 15 minutes, they found that most people on average were playing it for 30 to 45 minutes, which they interpreted to mean that the game was really fun, really engaging, and people were getting a lot more out of it than even they initially thought they would. So they used that as sort of the building blocks for making the rest of the game. And personally, I can attest that the demo experience that shipped with the Vive, the lab experience, was actually quite good and quite fun. And I even remember thinking at the time that I wish Valve would have just pushed that experience further and made more games and more content behind it, because they clearly knew what they were doing. Now, early on, the developers were actually debating between making a full Portal or full Half-Life experience for VR, though they ultimately came to the conclusion that the extremely fast-paced mechanics needed for Portal would not be so well suited for VR, which I can 100% agree with. Doing acrobatics in VR is a whole new level of nauseating. Even if you're like a trapeze artist in real life, well, you're still probably going to get sick due to the more limited field of view and locked-in refresh rates of the headset that can't quite mimic reality. Though the new Valve Index is supposed to have some incredible peripheral vision, and it's supposed to be able to go up to 144 Hz refresh rate, which is pretty good and, from what I've heard, one of the better headsets on the market. Now, at least according to the Valve developer video, they seem quite excited about the experience that they've created. The team consists of many of the original Half-Life and Portal developers as well, and stylistically, the trailer did hit me hard with those nostalgic vibes. The original games were not only just incredibly important and pioneers to the entire game industry, but they also understood the fundamentals of gaming in a way that I see other developers screwing up all the time, even when Half-Life laid the groundwork for them to just copy and paste. Half-Life games rarely, if ever, use cinematic cutaways to narrate or establish the settings of their games. It's always told from the character's perspective. And not only that, but even during dialogue sequences, the game didn't lock you in place, but instead let you walk around and mess with stuff. Knocking over a beaker while a scientist was mid-monologue would cause him to pause and comment on your actions. There were none of those quick-time events that we find so common in modern gaming, where you have to press X at the right moment, or locked-in animations that took control away from you. It offered a sense of presence that I've never once experienced in any other game. You are Gordon Freeman, and the game never takes that away from you or control away from you, while still allowing for the most intense visual spectacles and cinematic experience that you feel like you're discovering on your own. The game uses all kinds of clever tricks to draw your attention, and even invents new technology like real working video cameras and security screens that allow you to witness things happening in other parts of the environment while you're just playing the game. There's no question that the quality of this new trailer looks very good, and I personally believe that this experience will probably be some of the best VR gaming available. But will a VR experience be as impactful or as far-reaching as a PC/console title, or even as replayable? I will remain quite skeptical, but it's clear that Valve are pulling out the big guns and giving VR its all. We're seeing this VR tech being used effectively all around the world in instances that have nothing to do with gaming, and that's actually really great and wonderful and driven a lot by the game industry, especially if this new usage allows people to accomplish things never before possible, like in medical technology, or allowing people to visualize new environmental changes in ways that they never could before. But when it comes to gaming, VR is still that thing I know I can do for about 1 to 2 hours before I really want to take off the headset. I would hate for one of the most important shooter games of all time to be limited by a platform that may ultimately die out in the gaming world. The mechanics of this new Half-Life game are being designed from the ground up for the VR platform. So it's pretty much impossible to expect a non-VR version of this experience. Anyone that's holding out hope that perhaps later down the road Valve will port the experience over to the normal PC or console platform is probably going to be quite disappointed. By the looks of it, it would require a complete redesign of the game, and at that point they may as well just make an entirely different game, which I don't think they have plans on doing. This Half-Life announcement is a huge question mark for the gaming world. Lots of people very excited about the next Half-Life game, and honestly, not a lot of people super excited about VR. Maybe I'm gauging that wrong, but honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time talking with gamer friends about that really cool VR title that you just gotta play. It's almost always talking about games that are on the PC or console platform. Maybe Half-Life 3 will change that. Maybe we'll all be talking about Half-Life 3 in March, but only time will tell. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.